give me 1 second. I should be ready in a moment. Glasses are extremely dirty, so let me clean those up real quick. I see Shadow Band in the chat. Always good to see you. Let's see how my cam is looking. I don't look too busted today. Pull it down, let you guys see my shirt a little bit. Rocking retro X-Men today. Get that straight. Yeah, that should be good. Just rough. Hold on a second. One moment. Rock box. Hello, how's everyone doing out there? Hopefully they're doing okay. Since I'm testing out my headphones, see how they work. Let me know how my sound quality is. If you guys are hearing me okay, if I need to turn it up, down, or if I don't need to use them at all, let me know if you guys are hearing me okay in the chat, please. But if you guys can hear me okay, then I'll go ahead and proceed. Just let me know. And if I guess I don't hear anything, I'll give it probably maybe 30 seconds. And if I don't hear anything in the chat, then I guess I'll just go ahead and start. All good? Sounds good? Okay, cool. All right. As you guys have seen the title, um, are mandatory vax on the horizon? And I think so. Um, for multiple reasons, but before getting all the way into it, let's just take what we've heard from the national media alone lately. We have heard a recent push, harder push throughout all the different, mainstream media sources, whether they be right wing or left wing or trying to find some kind of coalition of Republicans and Democrats, trying to figure out which celebrities that they can get to come into your community. Um, Dad, YouTube loves to hide. Yeah, they love to hide my channel so badly. I actually have a video coming up to go into, since I have three different channels, looking at the difference between how each channel, just looking at the regular search results. So on that one, hopefully everybody can back out of it, still listen to me, but actually pull it up and search along with the video and watch, and see if it comes up the same way in your search engine. It might not come up the same way, but I know when I search one particular channel in general, that channel always seems to have a difficulty searching it. And sometimes some of the stuff that it puts in the search results literally have nothing to do with what is in the search block. So it's pretty obvious what's going on, especially on that channel. And then a couple other things. I'll go into it on that video. This video, we're going to talk about that. So I noticed some of the comments, and if you all didn't catch my last video, I do recommend checking it out after this one. Um, in that video, I shared what was his name, Derek Thompson from what is it, the Atlantic? Yes, reporter for the Atlantic, and he throughout the whole interview, eventually once he got towards the end of it, it's probably about 15 minutes long. About 10 minutes in, he actually goes into and says, kind of what I was kind of expecting to kind of slip out some way somehow. That in a lot of the basically neoliberal circles, there is a lot of talk of, should they put pressure on the FDA so that the FDA will just hurry up and rush and get this thing more approved. And whether it be that approach, whether it be some of the other approaches, whether it be, I mean, we'll get into all the different things. The thing I want everybody to focus on is the consistent theme has been pressure. And I like to think of it as, putting a person or individual there. And so you can imagine the whole system as if just whoever worst person in your mind that you want to imagine, whoever that is, just make that person the person who's controlling everything. Okay? And so whoever that person is, imagine them not having patience also. And their real feelings and motivations is really to force what they really want to do in the first place. But they know they can't nakedly just do it that way, especially when they know they may be in the minority in that position. And they may have to move people to move people more to their position. Um, and people would say, well, what do you mean? Like some kind of brainwashing or brain control? We all get brainwashed all the time and we don't even think about it. I'll show you what I mean so I can show you these things are practical and not a whole bunch of mystical, crazy mumbo jumbo. Um, ways which we are brainwashed on a regular. Think about a lot of times when you hop in the car, you listen to the radio, and some song comes on that it's a popular song, everybody knows it, but you can't stand the song. But every time you hear that song come on over and over, and if you notice, a lot of radio stations, whichever top musician or artist, whoever they are, their song normally gets played during the primetime hours, normally 4 or 5 times throughout the day at least. I'm pretty sure in other places it's probably even more. And so by that repetition over and over and over and over and over, eventually it starts to break down your sensitivity to that song which you had previously. And therein, after a while, you start singing some of the lyrics to that song. It starts to get stuck in your head. Some of the songs, sometimes you're going to still hate it no matter what, but sometimes it's able to sit in your cerebral cortex long enough to start softening you to the song and listening to other things in the song which may convince you that you like the song more than you probably do. It's the same thing with propaganda. You may hear it right off the bat and ignore it, but as you hear it more and more and more and more, it makes it more logical. It makes it, and you might not notice that it's happening, but all it does is it's kind of chipping away at your individual thought pattern on it because it's giving you a diet of information only from one perspective. And so after a while, it starts to override your natural instincts in some of these things because you may not know a lot about this particular subject. So if you don't know a lot about the particular subject, but you feel skeptical and you have questions, and then you get browbeated with a bunch of word salad and a lot of non-answers, but it's worded so complexity, you don't really know if they're quite answering the question anyway, then you end up just kind of, well, maybe I am wrong, and it puts that doubt in your head. Whether they completely convince you, if they're able to put that doubt in your head that you're wrong, then you stop questioning and stop researching, and eventually you sit on the sidelines instead of doing more research into it. I'm not saying everybody, but it happens to a lot of us. On various issues, I believe it happens to every one of us, depending on the issue. Um, the reason why I say that I believe they that it is coming, it will be mandatory, is like I reported last night in my hometown of Kansas City. One of the hospitals there, Truman Medical Center, is already making it mandatory for all medical staff to have the vaccine. Now I know at this time it's frontline staff, and eventually it's going to go throughout the whole entire staff. It's only a matter of time before that starts going through the whole entire medical sector, from doctors all the way down to what CPAs or CNAs, all the way down to you know janitors. I believe it's going to get to that point where everybody who's working within the hospital is going to have it. We already see that the NFL is already putting a lot of pressure on their players. That's going to lead more than likely to the NBA following suit. And then, you have the NFL doing it, NBA doing it. Next thing you know, Major League Baseball is going to be doing it. And then it's going to get to a point where majority of a lot of major professions, it's going to become a requirement. So you're going to be forced out of those fields, those fields. Because people say, oh, you can just go get a job somewhere else. Well, what if you work only 30 years in the medical field? What do you do then? How do you sustain your livelihood? I mean, more than likely, 30 years you've had. A lot of people would be married, children, those types of things, mortgage, cars, I mean, debt, all kind of things. And to lose a whole career field and not really have alternate career fields to just hop right into that are going to be of you know, equal compensation, financially, maybe lost benefits, a whole bunch of things. Maybe you had money set aside for your kids' college fund. Maybe you had rainy day, money set aside. Maybe you just never got to that point of buying a house, but that was your plan when you finally got set. Those kind of things are going to be out the window for a lot of people. And I say it's not necessarily mandatory to the point of literally holding people down and forcing them or putting a gun to their head, uh, that I know of. But I mean, with this government, honestly, don't rule anything out. I mean, this government has had a very disgusting history of what it wanted to do, what it's done when it wanted to do it. So America's kind of not, I don't see them as such the benevolent actor with a lot of people in politics today, um, like to see them as. And it's funny to me, especially on the left, well, I guess more so, yes, on the left. Especially, I'm talking about mostly neoliberals and some just basic leftists. We sit there and we rail against the millionaires and billionaires. Who do we think owns the company? The millionaires and the billionaires. Who do we think pay off these politicians? Who benefits from this or that? Or just in general, have any of us just stopped to think about what have billionaires themselves said about the things that they think about or that they care about? Because you got to remember, when you're a billionaire, the things you talk about, you can make a reality. Hey, El, you have the ability to make these things a reality. So you can't take lightly any comment which they say, even if it's in jest a joke, because they literally can make it happen. And you have to always, with how many lawsuits come out with all of these various corporations, for any of us to just blindly trust anything, and we literally have the FDA, which half of us really don't trust the government that much anyway as a whole, even the FDA on many things. Even the FDA saying, we don't really want to, I mean, and the reason why, which I go back to again over and over, which I tell people is my cousin, who, when he was hard up for money, what he used to do was he would go to these research facilities and they would pay people to take various different medications and test them. And then they just have to report over long periods of time, maybe a year, 2 years, or whatever. And it was paid throughout that time period. And they were supposed to report any adverse side effects. And majority of those drugs, even when some company greased the palms of somebody and got it to pass through, you know, a little bit early, they still had to wait a lot of times, 10, 15, 20 years to get these pharmaceuticals passed. And the fact that you literally have a large portion of Americans who want to force the FDA to basically circumvent their rules because of their because of what they believe, and which we got to source this back to a lot of it. It's the media and the propaganda and brainwashing, which I was talking about earlier. Just like if you hear a song that you can't stand, you keep hearing it over and over and over. Eventually, it starts. You might start to soften up on that song, and it's the same thing with the anti-vax. I mean, well, with the vaccination situation. And what they started out doing, if we go back and pay attention right after the vaccination came out, every state was doing some kind of giveaway, some kind of raffle. So they start off with trying to reel you in with, I guess what they call it, the carrot and stick approach. But in this case, it looks like it's going to be carrot, stick, bat, cup, a lot of other things. So we'll start off with back to the carrot part. I saw some talking about we'll pay off your student loans. Where they were giving away cars, you know, tickets to go to various different countries, just all kind of different gifts. Some just straight out money, some giving beer, some giving literal joints and weed. Um, so they were literally trying to give away everything that they could think of. Um, I won't go into some of the other crazier things which I've heard of too. And then you think of, well, apparently they're not getting quite the results that they expected. So they try kicking it up a notch in their eyes. And you start seeing all of these videos from celebrities who are all taking these, I got the back, videos. And so those, they reach out to some groups of people, but the people who were kind of steadfast in the first place who had questions still continue to have questions and we're not getting answers. And instead of not getting answers, we were getting more conjecture and why should you even question more the approach, which sums up just a lot of words typing most of the time, which I saw dealing with these people. Because very simple questions which I'll ask, and I'm asking for direct answers, it would always be a deflectionary answer. One example, I started asking about percentages. I said, well, what was the percentage of people in the world at the time of the Spanish flu? And what were the numbers of the Spanish flu infected? And what was the numbers of the deaths, specifically in the United States? And this doctor had no clue how to answer that question, but deflect to, well, is it acceptable for this amount of people to die? And I'm saying that's that's putting up a straw man. I didn't at all say that any death is necessarily acceptable. That's not what I said. That's not what I stand by or anything. That's just trying to divert from that topic I'm asking. I'm just asking pure, simple questions on numbers. And if you see on Twitter, I've changed my Twitter name on there because a lot of people are not just doing this one simple bit of math. Now, I guess I'll have to correct myself. I misquoted last night, so I will correct myself. I rounded up from the 600,000 deaths or so to 700,000. So we'll round up. We'll make it 700,000. Population of the United States is 330 million to 350 million. Um, that percentage comes out to, I mean, 0.2, 0.21%. So 0.2% is the death rate of COVID. And they are literally trying to get to the point of forcing everybody to take the vaccination. Now, what happened to my body, my choice? What happened to religious freedom? I mean, all of these things are being thrown out of the window faster and faster and faster. We're starting to have things like the Pegasus software, which comes out and shows how much spying that's going on. I mean, think over the probably past, what, 15 years or so, how many whistleblowers that have came out talking about all of the different clandestine secret things the government was doing literally in real time. In the past, we normally had to wait. I mean, we'd find out 20, 30 years after it was over. And it's just mind boggling how so many things just start unraveling, like literally right in their faces while they're doing some of this stuff. And that's why it's been such a harsh reaction. And this approach to try to know what everybody's doing at all times. That's the reason why I don't even worry about trying to, I mean, go through all these security measures of trying to make sure I'm not, being bugged or wired. I know that they could be listening to me in God knows what. And if they want to, they could sneak a bug in here or do whatever, or they'll figure a way out. And I have no ability to stop that. All I can do is lean on my faith and then, leave the trust there. But I have no ability to stop anything that they want to do if they want to start, watching, monitoring, or whatever, or if they decide to do what they did to a lot of people who like to speak out or go against the main narrative or were willing to just ask questions. Sometimes even the people who just want to ask questions, that scares them. Um, go off topic sort of a little bit. I was watching the movie last night about what was it, Billie Holiday, and she was often arrested a lot, and I knew a lot about that. But I didn't realize the biggest reason why the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover had a problem with him is because of that one song, Strange Fruit. If you're not familiar with the song, you guys should definitely look it up. But at the time when she was talking about, or when she was singing that song, it was a time when there were all kind of lynchings in the South. The KKK was very strong. The KKK had completely infiltrated every level of the government. I mean, all the way up to the White House. Um, so it was a very scary time to definitely be a black woman, especially singing at some clubs in the South. I mean, one moment you're standing in front of a crowd, a mixed audience, and everybody's having a good time and singing along to your music. And the next moment, you can't ride up the elevator in the same hotel which you just sang at, which all these people pay tons of money. But that song, which you was singing, the song was a reminder of what was going on and an attempt to be a consciousness to what was going on in that era and what was going on, to speak out a voice that's not able to be heard. And it wasn't that every white person didn't care or wouldn't have done anything, but if something is not in front of you and you don't even know about it, how can you do anything about it? And so her singing that song was a conscious wake up call to those who may not have known what's going on, may have thought that that's not still happening, is it really? Or those who heard about it but don't think that it is as bad or as prevalent as it was at the time. And it's the same thing with any of these truth tellers. If we literally go back to the time and the period and start looking at what they were saying and what was the tenor of the moment, it gives us a different viewpoint and reflection. And you start looking at a lot of these situations, they're not very different than some of the same times that we live in with some of the truth tellers that we've had, speaking of it, like the Julian Assange and the Commander X, you know, John Kiriakou, I mean, Edward Snowden, we can just go down the list, you know, Daniel Ellsberg. But if you're a truth teller, you have to be prepared for some kind of persecution. And they don't even want us to question anything about this act, even though the death rate is literally 0.21%. And we've already seen in other countries where, for instance, Israel, they're literally banning people from public locations. At what point is it going to become you can't come to the hospital unless you're vaccinated? At what point is it going to be you can't come to the grocery store? And if it's going to be some kind of situation like that, is there going to be an alternate situation for people to eat at? Is there going to be a grocery store which is for the non-vax? Are we going to have a liberal segregated, society coming? And if things get to that point, we all know what's going to start happening. I mean, I'm not even going to say it. We all know what'll start happening at that point. And at the same time, we literally have climate change racking hell all over the world. We have certain regions of the country where people are being, completely forced to move out of places they've lived for generations because of just the impact of climate change is destroying where they live. Now, that going on along with places like the Arctic that are hitting its warmest temperature. Those people who focus mostly on just getting Trump out of office and didn't think about all the ramifications of not focusing on the big issues before they get out of control. I mean, it's almost kind of like a Chernobyl situation in slow motion. It keeps rising and rising and rising, and the powers that be do nothing about it. And when it's getting to the point where they have certain measures that they can still take, they don't want to take those measures. And so the climate change, the people who are dealing with, I guess the frontline activists, those people who are trying to tell the truth, they're going to get silenced in the same thing. And what we see now with the government, like I talked about the Pegasus software earlier, and if you think that is just these handful of nations, and it's definitely not the U.S. also. If you think that the U.S. and Great Britain and I literally believe every nation is using that software. And so at the same time, if I had that software, and just think about it, if any of you all had that software and you were leasing that out, would you not leave a back door so you can get access to every bit of that information whenever you wanted to? It only makes sense. It literally makes perfect sense that you would do that. So it's no doubt in my mind that more than likely the creators or the corporation which own it literally have that same information too. And I think it is playing into all kind of social economic problems. And with all of these things going on, the vax, everything is coming down to either you're vax or unvax. And it's going to be used and amped up more because of all of these things we have going on with climate change. We have so many nations around the world that are at odds with each other, so much tension around the world. We have climate change going on. And so what they're going to do is focus on January 6th, keep us all distracted, 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 and we got to make this vaccine, go through. Now, I will leave everyone out there to figure out and ask if the death rate of COVID is 0.2%, then why does every single person in America need to get vaccinated? Or why even 80 or 90%? Why? And if it's because that's what Fauci said in the CDC, well, haven't they came out and recounted many of their own statements? At which point do we start to, at which point are we valid in questioning which directives they give out at the moment? Or even the guidance that the vaccinations are perfectly safe and harmless. I mean, we know that they don't have FDA approval. We know that it's emergency RMA. So you're literally going to force the whole entire nation to be an experiment project. The first time in history that they're literally going to get to a point of forcing. Now, I know they'll say, oh, we're not forcing anything. But if you destroy a person's livelihood and you basically make them homeless, how are you not forcing them? You're saying that, well, you should just, hey, man up, woman up, and just go be homeless then. I mean, think about it. There's laws where you can't even collect rainwater. You can't just, all the land is taken, so you just can't decide, well, I'm going to take this land and live on it. There's all kind of permits that you have to deal with for just growing your own vegetables and fruit. So more than likely, you would have to go and get a permit from the government, which would demand for you to have some kind of vaccination um, or some kind of card of being, I guess, negative. You see where I'm going with this? It's only a matter of time before it keeps ratcheting up and ratcheting up and ratcheting up. And what's going to happen? The reason why I say that I could see it getting brutal is because a lot of people, I mean, we could be facing a situation where we're literally looking at like what we could call Biden deal. That's the kind of future that I see coming, possibly, because all they're trying to do right now, like for instance in California, they're talking about another stimulus, and I know there's been rumors in DC of another stimulus. They're trying to throw out a little bit of money to try to keep the tensions down, but they know with the ratcheting up, there are going to be segments of the population that are not going to be just willy nilly with it, especially the fact of how many people didn't even want to wear masks in the first place. And so now you're going to tell people, I'm going to put this shot in you, or you're not going to have a job. You're more than likely going to lose your home. Or imagine if you're, say, say a divorced parent and you don't have full custody. You're not able to make money because you're not vaccinated. You're not seeing your kids. And you possibly go to jail and you might get vaccinated anyway once you go to jail. Because you really don't have a choice when you go to jail if they decide that there's some kind of shot or something going. I mean, if there's some kind of illness or whatever going around, if they decide everybody's getting shot, everybody's getting it. And so it becomes a situation of, well, now you got to watch out that for some reason or another, you don't somehow wind up in prison, or not even just prison, maybe even just jail, maybe just a detention center over a weekend. It could be a situation where, okay, well, all inmates need to be vaccinated, and there's nothing you can do about it because when you're incarcerated, your rights are very limited, even when you're in pre-trial, which they shouldn't be. But I'm just telling you guys how it actually is. So I say those who say are really wholeheartedly full stop not taking the vaccination, then I say prepare for some rough times and um, let's see how. I mean, like I say, I'm one of those people. I'm not touching them. I don't care who they bring out and start talking to me. I'm not touching them. And I know it's going to get to a point where they don't even want to hear my religious exemption. So I guess, you know, at this point, that's what I was going to say. Um, for now on future shows, I will be putting my cash app in the chat. Never know how things might go. I'm definitely concerned about that, you know, at least just to be on the safe side. Because it could come to a point where I actually do need to use, you know, YouTube to try to make some money. So I might not just be able to kind of do it as a hobby and hopefully reach out to teach some people because I could already see in California a ratcheting up throughout many of the businesses on different things that are going on. I could see it. Well, we already. I mean, I'm pretty sure in the military, it's definitely going to become mandatory pretty soon. Because the military is notorious for taking crap that. So I mean, you literally sign yourself away anyway. So it's not much you could tell. It's not much you could say once you're in the military, unless you are a damn good lawyer or know a damn good lawyer. But it's not much you're going to be able to do when you're in the military. And I could see a scenario where right after that it's going to be all civil service. So anything dealing with the government at all would need the vaccination. Now let's start doing the math on how many jobs that'll be lost or people in a situation where you lose your job, you lose your house, you lose whatever you have if you do not take this vaccination. And many people are going to feel like it is that it's kind of mandatory at that point when your only options are possibly, you know, living out of your car somewhere. So I just warn of that, and it's not like if somebody says, "Oh, well, what can we do? Can we run to Canada or something?" No. That's not how this is going to work. Um, Over in Europe, a lot of countries have already started the vaccine passport. Um, I know that there were all kind of riots and protests in the streets dealing with the whole vaccine passports with France and Macron. Um, I haven't looked into what's going on in Germany. I know that Russia is one of the only nations where they're not really they're a little bit more skeptical on what's going on there. They're a little bit more skeptical as far as the vaccination. So they're not really pushing towards any kind of passport thing. I have heard, interestingly though, that some places are actually starting to really drop some of their requirements. So at the same time, where some places are ratcheting up, I see some places dropping. But I honestly just see that what's happening is more and more places are are starting to become in lockstep as far as whenever this area or this nation or this nation or this nation locks down, they're all kind of locking down at the same time. They're all starting to do some of the same kind of measures. They're all starting to propose a similar kind of, you know, mandatory statutes on different career fields. Um, the exclusion of being able to go to certain public places, depending on the crowd size of the people, and sometimes indoor or outdoor exclusion for unvaccinated. And so it it's getting to a point where it's really starting to get kind of like crowbars. And one thing I noticed that they're doing a lot in a lot of these articles is they are focusing on the conservative angle. And this is just my theories. You guys can tell me if you think I'm wrong. But my theory is the reason why they're focusing on the conservative and white evangelical Christians is what I call, from boxing, what we call a feint. A feint is when you kind of like you're gonna punch, but you don't, just to kind of set them up for the bigger punch. Well, what they're doing is, yes, they want even the white evangelicals to get vaccinated. Also, their bigger push has been mostly in the black and brown community because that's where the biggest resistance, um, percentile wise, has been. Now, numbers, if you just look at what percentage of Americans, and just look at, okay, well, numbers, yes, there would be more white people who are against the vaccination than it would be black and brown people. But if you just look at the numbers of black and brown people, the percentages who are against it are much higher than what I've noticed in the white and Asian races. And that's where, that's the reason why they've been paying a lot of black celebrities to try to entice black people into taking the vaccination. And that's why you have people like Sagar who on and on, well, who could we get in front of them and convince them? Which to me is kind of insulting, but whatever. Um, because if I just randomly start picking out random Indian people and said, I wonder if Sagar would listen to this person who's saying what I want to say. So, I digress on that. But I just tell you all, look, just watch out for yourselves. I would start storing up certain things, water, toilet paper. I'm not saying go in there and get crazy like these people who rent a U-Haul and try to, empty a store out. But I'm saying just get enough supplies for you and your family, non-perishable things, which you can have just in case it starts to get a little sticky at the store. Um, a report which a lot of people haven't really heard about, but I think all of these things are all kind of running together at the same time. So, um, especially when you look back to, um, the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu, you had economic woes going on, you had corruption throughout multiple governments, you literally had a world war going on, and you had, that pandemic going on. So, just like in those times, I believe this is going to be the same way, whereas you have all of these things going on with that, and all of these other issues that are all just going to manifest themselves and start to come to a boiling point at the same time. Hopefully I'm wrong, but that's just what it looks like. It all just looks like it's leading down into one path. And you know, if I don't know, so many things I want to say, but I don't. I want to make sure that I don't get myself more censored than I already am. Keeping that in mind, I do have a video that I will do shortly that will go into some of my censorship and proving. And so when people say, "Oh, well, they saw all my content or they did this in the algorithm," I'm going to show you a clear example where you can see what they're talking about and what I'm talking about when I say that they thought on my content or that they play games with the algorithm and things like that, where it's a clear example. Um, I also have a interview coming up soon, or maybe a guest panelist. Um, for those who saw the video, which I did, or look for it down there, somewhere in the videos, where I have a video that I'm covering by Socks and Sandals podcast, and it has Jane Goodall, I believe it's Jane Goodall, the older lady who always deals with race. And he Yeah, he does a bang up interview. So I wanted to cover that video. So I covered it and took a couple of key parts or parts that I thought were key. I also recommend that you actually see the original one that he actually did. Very good interview, very professional. How he handled a lot of stuff I wouldn't have handled quite as politely dealing with Jane there. But I definitely say check it out. Um, Working on possibly getting him on the political matrix this weekend, but if not, might actually have a guys might have a treat. I might try to do two political matrix. Um, if I can beg, and plead my co-host um on Sunday to do a show, but I understand if they're not. I might still do it anyway. I might just do it as a one-on-one interview, but um, do expect to see Mr. Emmanuel Williams from Socks and Shoes, Socks and Sandals podcast. Sorry, and make sure to give him a subscribe and a like to let him know that I sent you over here. Let's see, what does Thomas say here? Native Americans are the highest rated COVID vaccinated people in the country despite much distrust against the feds. I guess the historical fear of foreign plagues drove natives to get vaccinated. Oh, possibly. Um, there's so many theories on that. I would love to, kind of sit and pick your brain on that and kind of um, throw some questions from a different angle. Um, Not saying that you're wrong and I'm right or anything like that. Just some different other things that I might want to talk to you about, but not quite on this one. But yeah, we'll have to get together and talk about it. And I got a little bit going on for Hebrew apologetics. I'm still working on a two-part, I guess, little mini documentary, or I call them little documentaries when they start getting long. But this one I think is probably a little over an hour, and I kind of have like a part two that I'm kind of working on them simultaneously. That's roughly about 45 minutes. So it's about 2 hours of content on that topic, but there will be more going on with that channel. I just have a whole lot of stuff backed up that I need to get to, so I just been a little bit behind, but expect a lot of things coming out on Hebrew apologetics. Um, I will keep on doing. This will be. I'll try to work out that this specific time. Was it 7:15, 7:30? I know I started a little late today, but I'll try to work to stay at this time period. Um, Monday through Thursday. Um, Friday, Friday and early part of the was it Friday to Saturday. I observed a Friday to Saturday Sabbath. Though I believe in the the new moon Sabbath because of work restrictions, um, I decided to observe it on that time period, regardless. So that's why I normally kind of drop off the map for that time period. Sometimes you guys might see me tweet a little bit, but a lot of times I'm not doing any kind of content or any interviews or anything. So that's why. For those who kind of wonder why they don't see me, or I'm not very active when a lot of other people might be active, um, has to do with some of my my beliefs and me trying to observe my beliefs. So I guess I will leave it there before I just keep on rambling. And I know there's other people out there who they have very, very noteworthy and decent content. Well, more than decent, great content that needs to be discovered. So hopefully you all, instead of just clicking when you search for something, instead of just clicking the first couple, sometimes just roll it down a little bit. Just keep on going, get that wrist nice and loose, roll down about a good, 40 and 50, choices. And then once you get down there, you know, start checking out some of the stuff down there because a lot of times those are those very truth tellers which are going to open your mind to different knowledge that you didn't understand or give you a different perspective on things that you thought you had a full grasp on. Um, One thing I find that we do often, and I try my best to work on more than anything, is to not hold hard on many things which I've grown up believing. If if it's something which I've kind of always believed, I always leave room for it to be challenged for the most part because you don't know how much of that is residual propaganda and training, and how much of that is your own actual research and confirmation and understanding to make sure that it is truly what you think and believe versus something that you've just been taught and kind of stuck with over the years. So sometimes it can get hard to tell the difference between those things, but we gotta always try to make sure to do that. And that's just something that I try to do. I feel like it has blessed me immensely to learn from other people and to hear people out and um, to hear the matter all the way out, to be slow to anger. So that's just a little bit of, words of advice, I guess. Um, and this has been what I've been thinking with Marcus Cage. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all tomorrow. You guys have a great evening. Good time to meet.